My father always taught me that showing emotions is a sign of weakness and even punished me for going to therapy. So, I ended up sending him to jail. Now, after a year, he's going around telling everyone that I'm mentally unstable. On my 4th birthday, my father introduced me to his version of strength. During the party, another kid ran wildly and crashed into me, knocking our heads together. Tears streamed down my face as I sobbed. My dad lifted me up and carried me to the bathroom. Instead of comforting me with a gentle touch or kind words, he struck me sharply across the cheek. "You're a big boy now, and big boys don't show weakness," he said coldly, before leaving me alone to nurse my pain. From that moment, I trained myself to bury my emotions. I became so skilled at it that my father began testing my resolve. I'd come home to find my toy soldiers sliced apart with a kitchen knife. Sometimes he'd play videos on the TV, compilations of the most brutal, violent scenes from horror films. But the sting of that birthday lesson was so intense that I never broke. My older brother Tom would sneak to my side when Dad was out. "It's okay to feel things," he'd whisper, ruffling my hair. "Just keep it hidden from Dad. You can always talk to me." Back then, I was so desperate for my father's approval that I saw Tom as soft, weak. I never betrayed him, but deep down, I wished he'd disappear for being so fragile, believing he deserved it. One Halloween night, Dad was driving us, Tom to school, me in the back, when a car sped toward us. Dad slammed on the brakes just in time. As we caught our breath, a truck barreled out of nowhere and smashed into us. That's the risk of driving in New York City on a chaotic night. I braced myself and escaped with only a mild concussion. But as paramedics rushed me to the hospital, I saw Tom left behind in the wreckage. I knew he was gone. A cold emptiness consumed me. In hindsight, I was dissociating. Days later, when reality sank in, I concluded that I survived because I was strong, and Tom died because he was weak. Throughout my strange grieving process, I didn't shed a single tear. This made my father adore me even more. He called me a true man, destined to be tough and unyielding. His praise became my only source of pride. Whenever sadness or doubt crept in, I pushed it deep down, locking it away. My life became a cycle of endless naps and overeating. By 15, I was a 400-pound, depressed teenager teetering on the edge. I'd numbed myself so thoroughly that I forgot what it meant to care for others. My mindset was selfish. If I upset someone, that was their burden, not mine. At 16, the school counselor called me in for a mandatory meeting. I braced for a lecture about my self-centeredness or my weight. Instead, she looked at me with soft, concerned eyes. "Nathan, I'm worried about you," she said. "We all are." She handed me a pamphlet for therapy. "This could help." "What the hell?" I shouted. "With all due respect, I don't need a shrink." I stuffed the pamphlet in my pocket and stormed out. It was the kind of reaction my dad would have had. But later that day, he was watching The Green Mile, Tom's favorite movie. From upstairs, I could picture Tom's face lighting up at his favorite scenes, reciting lines word for word. For the first time in years, I felt the urge to cry. No tears came. Instead, I dialed the therapy number. The therapist said she'd been expecting my call, and we held our first session over the phone, no mention of payment. By the end, I was sobbing into my pillow, muffling the sound so my dad wouldn't hear. But I was crying. From there, I started writing in a journal and practicing mindfulness. Feeling again was draining. I still napped for hours. But it was also freeing. I began to understand why people chose to keep going. My heart felt alive. One day I sat at the kitchen table with my dad, buzzing with newfound joy. "What's got you so excited, son? A girl?" he asked with a smirk. "Actually, Dad, I started therapy," I said, my legs shaking with nerves. He froze, a bite of his sandwich halfway to his mouth. "You did what?" A vein throbbed in his forehead. I bolted from the room as he hurled a chair against the wall. Tears poured down my face as I locked my bedroom door and called 911. I gave them our address and pressed my back against the door, listening to my dad's rampage through the house. Glass shattered. Footsteps thundered closer. "Nathan, open this door!" he roared, pounding so hard the door rattled. "You think you need therapy? I'll give you something to cry about." I stayed silent, gripping my phone. The operator urged me to stay calm, promising help was coming. I'd never been so terrified. I thought of Tom and wondered if he'd be proud of me for standing up. When the police arrived, my dad transformed instantly. Charming, bewildered, worried about his troubled son. But the officer saw the wrecked living room and the fear in my eyes. They took him outside to talk while a female officer stayed with me. For the first time, I poured out everything. The next morning, I woke up in an unfamiliar bed. The sheets smelled of fresh laundry, not the stale scent of my room. Confusion hit me until the memories flooded back. The therapy confession, my dad's outburst, the 911 call. I was at my Aunt Ellen's house. After my statement to the police, they'd called her to pick me up. She was my dad's sister, but they weren't close. I'd only seen her a few times at family events where she'd linger quietly with a glass of wine and leave early. She lived 30 minutes away in a tidy bungalow filled with porcelain knickknacks and a grumpy cat named Sir Paws. A soft knock came at the door. Aunt Ellen peeked in, her face tight with concern or maybe irritation. "Breakfast's ready if you're hungry," she said without much warmth. I followed her to the kitchen where cereal and toast waited. The silence was heavy. She scrubbed already clean dishes while I ate. Sir Paul stared at me from atop the fridge. "Your father called this morning?" she said, still facing the sink. "He wants to speak with you." I nearly choked on my cereal. "I don't want to talk to him," she sighed, her shoulders sagging. "Nathan, I know things got intense, but he's your dad." I stared at her back, wondering whose side she was on. She turned, drying her hands. "Boys need their fathers," she said softly, "especially at your age." I didn't respond, just ate another spoonful and stared at the table. The next few days at Aunt Ellen's were strained. She gave me her guest room and some of my cousin's old clothes, which were too tight. So I kept wearing the same outfit I'd fled in. She worked days at a bank, leaving me alone. I watched daytime TV and raided her pantry. I texted my therapist, Dr. Lopez, about what happened. She arranged a virtual session for later that week, promising we'd sort out payment later. Knowing that appointment was coming kept me grounded. By the end of the first week, I was restless. Aunt Ellen barely spoke to me except to check if I'd eaten or needed groceries. She avoided mentioning my dad again, but I could tell she wasn't thrilled to have me there. Her house was too small, too orderly for a teenager to disrupt. One night in the second week, I got up for water and overheard Aunt Ellen on the phone in the living room. I froze when I realized she was talking to my dad. "I know, David," she whispered. "He's just mixed up right now. He needs time." I pressed against the wall, straining to hear my dad's voice, but it was muffled. Aunt Ellen went on. "Of course he's struggling, I get it. But he's your son. He needs you." My stomach twisted. She was siding with him, despite everything I'd told the police. "Dinner might help," she said. "Just to sort things out. I'll bring him over next weekend if he agrees." I crept back to my room, no longer thirsty. I lay awake, feeling betrayed. The next morning, Aunt Ellen announced that my dad wanted us over for dinner that Saturday. She tried to sound casual, like it was my choice, but her tone suggested otherwise. "He's making your favorite lasagna," she added, as if that would win me over. I wanted to refuse, to say I'd never go back. But where could I go? No money, no close friends to stay with, no other family nearby. So I muttered, "Fine," and nodded. The days before Saturday were agony. I kept imagining what my dad would say or do. Would he act normal? Be angry? Demand I return home? I barely slept, plagued by nightmares of being trapped in a sinking house. Saturday came too fast. Aunt Ellen made me wear a new dress shirt, as if we were a normal family having a normal dinner. The drive was quiet except for her soft jazz radio. My dad opened the door before we could knock, wearing an apron and a wide grin like he was hosting a celebration. The house was immaculate, no trace of the chaos from that night. The broken chair was replaced with one that didn't match. "There's my boy," he boomed, as if I'd been at camp, not escaping his threats. He moved to hug me, but I stepped back. His smile flickered, but returned. "Come in, dinner's almost ready." The smell of tomato sauce and garlic bread filled the air. He'd gone all out, fancy plates, a floral centerpiece. It was so staged it made my stomach churn. "Ellen, could you check the garlic bread?" my dad asked. "It's nearly done." As soon as she left for the kitchen, he leaned close. "Good to have you home, son. I've missed you." I nodded stiffly, unable to speak. He squeezed my shoulder too tightly. "We'll talk after dinner," he said quietly. "I've been reflecting, getting some help myself." Before I could reply, Aunt Ellen returned with the bread, and we sat to eat. My dad was all charm, sharing funny stories about his hardware store and asking Aunt Ellen about work. He barely spoke to me, which was fine. I poked at my lasagna, eating just enough to avoid attention. After dinner, he suggested I grab clothes from my room while he and Aunt Ellen cleaned up. I was glad to escape the charade. My room was unchanged, messy, clothes strewn about, game controller on the bed. I stuffed clothes into my backpack, not caring what I grabbed. Then I saw something on my desk that didn't belong, my therapy journal. I was certain I'd left it at Aunt Ellen's, hidden under the guest bed mattress. My hands trembled as I picked it up. Pages were creased, marked with red pen. Next to an entry about missing Tom, he'd written, "Soft." Beside another about crying after therapy, "Whiny brat." My blood ran cold. He'd been to Aunt Ellen's when I was out. He'd rifled through my things, read my private thoughts, and mocked them like a cruel critic. He was downstairs now, playing the perfect father. I shoved the journal into my backpack with whatever clothes were closest, then went to the bathroom and faked being sick, making gagging noises and splashing water on my face for effect. "I don't feel good," I told them downstairs, which was true. "Can we go?" My dad looked disappointed, but Aunt Ellen stood quickly. "Of course, honey. Let's get you home." Calling her house home felt wrong, but I was just relieved to leave. My dad walked us out, his hand on my back. "Feel better, son?" he said. "We'll try again soon." In the car, I clutched my backpack like a lifeline. Back at Aunt Ellen's, I locked the guest room door and wedged a chair under the knob. I flipped through the journal again, feeling violated by every marked page. Then I tore out his notes, ripped them to shreds, and flushed them down the toilet. That night, I slept with a kitchen knife under my pillow. I didn't trust Aunt Ellen anymore. I didn't trust anyone. School was brutal the next week. Rumors about my dad had spread. Some accurate, like how I'd called the police. Others wild, like I'd stabbed him or was in foster care. I kept my head down, ignoring the stares and whispers. In math class, a kid named Jake leaned over and asked if my dad was really in jail. I told him to buzz off. After class, the principal's assistant pulled me aside. Someone had reported I'd threatened Jake. I denied it, but Principal Carter gave me a stern warning anyway. "We've had troubling reports about your behavior, Nathan," he said, peering over his glasses. "I know things are tough at home, but that doesn't justify threatening others." I was too shocked to argue. As I left, I overheard the assistant on the phone discussing Nathan Miller's aggressive tendencies. The voice on the other end sounded like my dad's. I kept going to therapy. Dr. Lopez was the only one who truly listened. During one session, she suggested I explore my mom's story. "You rarely mention her," she noted. "Learning about her might help you understand your present." My mom died when I was a baby in a car crash, according to my dad. I had one photo of her holding me in the hospital. He never spoke of her, and I'd learned not to ask. "Maybe talk to family," Dr. Lopez said. "Your aunt might know something." I scoffed. "Aunt Ellen's not exactly my biggest fan right now." But the idea lingered. The next day, while Aunt Ellen was at work, I searched her home office for anything about my mom. In a dusty filing cabinet, I found an old photo album. Most pictures were preemie, my dad and Aunt Ellen as kids, family trips, holidays. Then I found photos of my mom. She was beautiful, with dark hair like mine and a smile that seemed tinged with sadness. There were shots of her and my dad dating, at their wedding, and when she was pregnant with me. In later photos, she looked gaunt, distant. In one holiday picture, she flinched slightly as my dad touched her. When Aunt Ellen got home, I held up the album. "Tell me about my mom." She looked startled and weary. She sat on the couch. "What do you want to know?" "Everything. What was she like? How'd she die? Was my dad always like this?" She stared at her hands. "Your mom, Sarah, was my best friend before she met David. She was warm, witty, brilliant. She painted mostly nature scenes. She wanted to teach art." I leaned forward, eager. "And I warned her not to marry him," she said, her voice breaking. "There were red flags even then. His need to control, his temper over small things. But she thought she loved him. She wouldn't hear me." "What about the crash? How'd she die?" Aunt Ellen looked away. "It was a car accident like you've been told. She was alone late at night on a clear road, no other cars. She hit a tree." Her tone made my skin prickle. "Are you saying it wasn't an accident?" She stood abruptly. "I'm not saying anything. It was a long time ago, Nathan. Let it be." But I couldn't. That night, while Aunt Ellen watched TV, I crept into the attic. I'd noticed her glance at the attic door during our talk, like she was hiding something. The ladder creaked as I climbed, but she didn't hear. The attic was stuffed with boxes and old furniture. Using my phone's flashlight, I scanned labels until I found one marked, "Sarah, Save." Inside were her paintings, journals, and a shoebox of VHS tapes labeled with dates. I took the box to my room and waited until Aunt Ellen was asleep. Using an old VHS player from her closet, I hooked it up to my room's TV. The first tape showed my mom and dad at a party before I was born. She looked joyful, laughing. My dad kept his arm around her. Later tapes showed their wedding, their first apartment, family gatherings. Then I found one labeled, "Sarah, 8 months pregnant." My mom sat at a kitchen table, her belly round under a floral dress, talking about baby names. "I like Nathan for a boy," she said. "It means hope." My dad's voice came from off-screen. "We settled on David Jr." Her face dimmed. "I thought we were still deciding." Nothing to decide. He stepped into frame and she tensed, her hand shielding her belly. "David, can you turn it off?" "I'm exhausted." "You're always exhausted," he snapped. "Maybe if you weren't so useless." The tape cut off. I rewatched it, noting the fear in her eyes, identical to mine when he'd thrown that chair. Other tapes showed more of the same, my mom growing more afraid, my dad's tone sharpening. Then I found one that stopped my heart, my mom alone, staring into the camera, eyes swollen from crying. "If you're seeing this, Nathan, it means I left," she whispered. "Or something happened to me. Either way, you need to know something." She leaned closer. "Don't trust him. Not at all. He's not the man I thought I married. He's..." The door opened off-screen and her face shifted to a forced smile. "Oh, hi, honey, just making a video for the baby to see someday." My dad's voice sharp. "Hand me the camera, Sarah." The tape ended. I sat in the dark, trembling. My mom's death wasn't an accident, I was certain, and my dad had been controlling long before I was born. The next day at school, I couldn't focus. Everything clicked. My dad's fixation on suppressing emotions, his tests, how he'd turned me against Tom. It was all part of his pattern, starting with my mom. After school, my history teacher, Mr. Harris, called me over. He was stern, intimidating to most students, and had never singled me out before. "Miller, got a sec?" he asked, waving me into his empty classroom. I followed. expecting a lecture about my recent quiz grade. He shut the door and leaned against his desk. "You okay?" he asked gruffly. "You seem off lately." I shrugged. He sighed, rubbing his bald head, and pulled a small notebook from his drawer. He handed it to me. Inside was a note. I had a father like that too. "You're not alone." I looked up, stunned. His face was stoic, but his eyes were warm. "If you need to talk, or anything else, I'm here," he said. I nodded, throat tight, and pocketed the notebook. For the first time, I felt less isolated. That night, I decided to record my dad whenever we interacted. I downloaded an app that recorded audio even with my phone locked. I wasn't sure what I'd do with the recordings, but it felt like a shield. The chance came sooner than expected. The next day, my dad appeared at school during lunch, scanning the cafeteria until he saw me. He waved and approached. I started the recording app before he sat down. "Surprise," he said, grinning. "Thought I'd take you out for a proper lunch. School food's trash." Kids stared. I shook my head. "I can't leave campus." "Sure you can. I'll sign you out. I'm your dad." He leaned closer, voice low. "Don't make a scene, Nathan. You know how that ends?" His threat was clear. I grabbed my stuff and followed him, phone recording. In the car, he chatted about school and the weather, but at the diner, his tone shifted. "When are you coming home?" he asked after we ordered. "I'm staying with Aunt Ellen for now," I said cautiously. His jaw clenched. "That's not your home. Your home is with me." "Dad, you threw a chair. You threatened me." He waved it off. "I got mad. It happens. I'd never hurt you, Nathan. You know that." I thought of the journal, the tapes, a lifetime of control. "I don't know that. You think anyone else cares about you like I do?" The waitress brought our food, and he flashed a charming smile. Once she left, he leaned in. "Here's the deal. You stop this therapy nonsense. You come home this weekend, we pretend this never happened. Got it?" I stared at my sandwich, appetite gone. "And if I don't?" His smile was icy. "I've already told the school about your aggressive behavior. One more incident, and you're out. Shame, right?" I felt sick. He was framing me as the problem, and people were buying it. I ate a few chips to stall, my mind racing. After lunch, he dropped me back at school, warning me to think carefully. I ran to the bathroom and vomited, then checked the recording. It captured everything. His threats, his manipulation. I saved it to the cloud, safe from him. His campaign escalated. He cornered me in the grocery store aisle while I shopped with Aunt Ellen, whispering more threats. He left messages with classmates, saying he was worried about me. He even called Dr. Lopez's office, claiming her therapy was harming me. I recorded every encounter, my phone always ready. One day after school, I saw his truck parked across the street. I ducked behind some seniors and took a detour past the faculty lot, where Mr. Harris was loading his car. "Mr. Harris!" I called, jogging over. "Got a minute?" He looked surprised. "Sure, Miller. What's up?" I glanced around. "My dad's out front. I'm avoiding him." He nodded, unfazed. "Need a lift?" I hesitated, then agreed. In his car, which smelled of coffee and paper, I asked about his note. "How'd you know about my dad?" He kept his eyes on the road. "Teachers see things, and I've been there. My dad was the same kind." "What did you do? How'd you escape?" He sighed. "Left home at 17, stayed with a friend's family until I graduated. Joined the military after, but that was decades ago, and I had no one. You do?" He dropped me at Aunt Ellen's with his number, offering help. I felt a bit stronger knowing one adult believed me. That night, alone while Aunt Ellen was at a book club, I heard a key in the lock. Thinking it was her, I didn't look up until heavy footsteps approached. My dad stood in the doorway, holding a key. "Surprise," he said coldly. I scrambled up, heart racing. "How'd you get in?" "Ellen gave me a key for emergencies." He pocketed it and stepped closer. "We need to talk, son." I backed away, fumbling for my phone. "Aunt Ellen's coming back soon." "No, she's not. Her group runs till 9. We've got time." His tone chilled me. I started recording. "I've been patient," he said, advancing. "I've given you space, but this has gone too far." "I'm not coming home," I said, voice steady. "Yes, you are. I'm your father. You're a minor. You do what I say." "Or what? You'll throw another chair? Hit me like you hit Mom?" His face darkened. "You ungrateful little punk. After all I've done for you." "Like what? Teaching me to hide my feelings? Making me hate Tom before he died?" I hadn't meant to mention Tom, but the words spilled out. Tom was right. It's okay to feel, to cry. You're the one who's broken, not me. He lunged, grabbing my shirt and slamming me against the wall. Frames crashed. I was stunned, unable to fight back. "Listen," he hissed, face close. "You're coming home tonight. You'll tell Ellen and everyone you made it all up for attention, and you'll stop therapy." I smelled alcohol on his breath. His eyes were wild. This wasn't his usual calculated control. This was worse. "No," I said calmly. "I'm not doing that." He hit me, hard, across the face. The pain was sharp, but I wasn't afraid anymore. Just furious. "That's all you've got?" I said, tasting blood. Hit me again. Show me what a real man does. He raised his hand, but I was ready. I ducked and pushed him with all my strength. He stumbled, crashing into the glass coffee table, which shattered. He lay there, dazed, blood on his forehead. I grabbed my phone, still recording. Get out! Now! He stood, glass crunching. You think this changes anything? No one will believe you over me. I have recordings, I said. Tons of them. You threatening me, manipulating me, and now this. I held up my phone. So yeah, they'll believe me. Fear flashed in his eyes, or maybe realization that he'd lost control. He stepped toward me, then stopped as a car door slammed outside. This isn't over, he growled, heading for the door. Yes, it is, I said. Aunt Ellen walked in as he left, staring at his bloody face, the wrecked living room, my swollen lip. What happened? She gasped. He broke in. He attacked me, and I have it recorded. My dad stayed silent, pushing past her into the night. Aunt Ellen stood frozen, keys in hand. I'm calling the police, I said, dialing. This time I had evidence. The recording of the attack, my collection of his threats, the journal with his notes, my mom's tapes. The police took it all and my statement. They searched for my dad but didn't find him that night. Aunt Ellen sat with me, icing my lip, apologizing repeatedly for doubting me. I knew, she said, crying. Deep down, I always knew what he was. But he's my brother. I didn't want to believe it. Did he kill Mom? I asked. She flinched. I don't know. The police called it an accident. But she told me that day she was leaving him. She'd found an apartment for you both. She was scared but ready. I nodded, the pieces fitting. And then she crashed that night. There was never proof, Aunt Ellen said quietly. But I've always wondered. The next days were a whirlwind of police interviews and social worker meetings. They found my dad and arrested him for breaking and entering, assault, and violating the temporary restraining order from the first incident. He was released on bail, but ordered to stay away from me and Aunt Ellen. School was a mix of avoidance and curiosity. Some kids shunned me, others wanted details. I ignored them, focusing on those who mattered, like Mr. Harris, who checked on me daily and came to court with me. I didn't press more charges. The permanent restraining order and mandated anger management and parenting classes for my dad were enough. I had no desire to see him. Aunt Ellen's house wasn't home, but it was safe. She wasn't a parent, but she was trying. We agreed I'd stay until college, and she turned her office into a real bedroom for me. Therapy continued. Dr. Lopez helped me process my dad's abuse, my grief for Tom, and my mom's loss. I realized Tom wasn't weak. He was strong for staying human. My mom hadn't abandoned me. She'd been trying to save me. One night I recorded a video for myself. I read from my journal, shared my story, and spoke to the scared boy I'd been, the one who thought emotions were weakness. I told him it was okay to feel, to cry, to be human. I almost deleted it, but uploaded it to YouTube instead, keeping it vague. No names, just my truth. By morning, it had hundreds of views, shares, and comments from others who'd lived similar stories, thanking me for voicing their pain. You saved me today, one wrote. I thought I was alone. I didn't reply. Knowing I'd helped someone was enough. Mr. Harris became a mentor, guiding me through college applications, scholarships, and even teaching me car maintenance, life skills, he said, though I knew he wanted me to be self-sufficient. Most of my family faded away. Some sided with my dad, calling me a liar. Others stayed out of it. I learned family is who shows up, like Mr. Harris. Aunt Ellen and I weren't close, but we managed. She respected my space, and I appreciated her effort. The summer before college, I visited Tom's grave, leaving a small stone on his headstone, a tradition I'd read about. I cried for him, for the brother who'd tried to shield me, who saw our dad's truth first. You were right, I told him. I haven't forgiven my dad. Some things can't be forgiven, only endured. But I found a path forward, undefined by his actions. I keep the recordings, journal, and my mom's tapes in a fireproof box under my bed, not for future use, but as a reminder that truth matters, even when it's painful, even when no one wants to hear it. I think of that 4-year-old boy, crying in the bathroom, learning the worst lesson of his life. I wish I could tell him his dad was wrong, that emotions aren't weakness, they're strength. That real courage is facing your feelings, not hiding them. I can't go back, but I can move forward, and that's what I'm doing. If you enjoyed this story and felt the emotions behind it, don't forget to give it a like, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel for more real-life experiences and heartfelt stories. Your support means the world, and it helps us bring more content like this to you. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.